bet you can guess what my first line's gonna be. The world has become a frightening place. I suppose it's always been that way to some degree, and I'm sure every generation is convinced they are living in the end times in one fashion or another. Change does that. Becoming awake does that. With that said, the planet is in a particularly precarious position, with about 7 years left before the damage we've done to our climate becomes irreversible. Equally frightening is knowing that our democracy is losing the guardrails that have held it together for 250 years, making the foundation of our lives, both the platform for all life and the ground for our particular American context, unstable and dangerously close to collapse. I would argue that we're in a more fragile place than any other time in human history, both because of the imminent collapse of our planetary systems and because of our access to global communications that force momentum at lightning speeds. While in the past people might have had time to adjust to advancements, today we live at high velocity. While our direction is destruction, we hardly have time to catch our collective breath before another horrific thing happens, propelling us toward the disintegration of our free society faster than our minds can fully understand what's going on. And even if we weren't bringing ourselves to the edge of national disaster, climate change is bringing the whole planet there, a problem we can't seem to summon the will to address in any meaningful way, guaranteeing global catastrophe. There seem to be two responses to these dual realities. One is an urgent, angry activism propelling people on both the right and the left toward intense, self-righteous politicking. The other is hedonism, sponsored by denial. We are either shaking people to wake them up and get them to fight, or we're keeping our heads down, reading romance novels and watching reality TV. Sometimes we do the activist thing, signing letters, posting frightening facts, showing up for rallies, reading the daily news, and then we burn out, overwhelmed by the distance between where we are and where we need to be. So we spend the next few months keeping our heads down, reading romance novels and watching reality TV. Neither of these is a perfect solution. I'm not sure either of them will get us anywhere close to where we want to be. It's possible hedonism will serve those who live into it, focusing on themselves and those in their immediate circles, indulging their physical desires and even their spiritual desires in the form of churches who preach personal success, hyper-individualism through personal relationships with God, and feel-good theologies. And it's possible the activists who never let up, who won't stop until every system reflects their understanding of peace, who shame us sometimes into constant participation, will eventually create a world where justice rolls down like water. I'm guessing, though, that neither will create a future of balance or joy. There isn't anything wrong with taking care of yourself, nor is there anything wrong with the fire of activism. I mean, it may be funny to hear this all coming from me, who claims the activist heart. I'm just not sure that either road is leading us to a utopian future. I am imagining a new world. It's what the novelist Octavia Butler calls writing science fiction. We have to imagine it to achieve it. Think for a minute about your utopian future. Just try and gather it up in your brain. If it was all the way it should be, what would it be? When I imagine the utopian future, we're living in communities of intentionality, with people caring for each other in real and tangible ways. We're growing food together. We're sharing resources and skills and training. We're living slower lives in partnership with each other. We're living with love at the center of everything. We don't get to that new world, or whatever world you're envisioning, or whatever science fiction might bring us to, whatever image we all want to follow, if we are either on the path of self-righteous activism or hedonism. And how we get to where we want to go matters. We are building a plane while flying it, and the tools we use will determine what kind of plane it is. So I'm hoping we build with joy and love and tenderness and pleasure. Emma Goldman was an anarchist, which for her and her left-wing activists of the early part of the 20th century was about liberation. There were rules, especially for women, that bound them into very small lives. They were fighting for suffrage, but also for an end to the conventions that dictated who they were allowed to be. One day, Emma received a letter from a man after her attendance at a party had been noticed by some others in the women's rights movement. The letter told her that in a time of such distress, it was unseemly for her to be seen dancing. He went on to note that her frivolity would hurt the cause and that her behavior was undignified. There were, after all, very serious matters at stake, and if they were going to be successful, they needed to reflect the urgency, especially in public. In her response, she said, I'm going to quote here from her memoir, quote, "I did not believe that a cause which stood for such a beautiful ideal, for release and freedom from convention and prejudice, should demand the denial of life and joy." She then went on with a version of the now famous line, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution." The revolution isn't separate from joy. The revolution, the dramatic upheaval of conventions that have brought us to the brink of destruction, the revolution has to include dancing and singing and art. And even though we don't usually say this from the pulpit, sex. And one day we need to have a conversation about why I can't talk about that from the pulpit. But we won't do it today. In so many ways, we're all feeling frightened. I'm going to ask if there are any children in the room. Is there a child here? There is? Okay. Okay, I'm going to spell. No, well, you don't know what I'm going to say yet. I'm going to spell a couple of words. On Friday evening in a residential neighborhood, a man was firing his AK-57 in his backyard. A neighbor asked him to stop because his infant was having trouble sleeping. In response, he S-H-O-T and K-I-L-L-E-D him, 3 women, and an 8-year-old child. This is the world we live in. We are armed to the teeth, shooting children who accidentally knock on our door or drive into our driveway, or neighbors who ask for quiet so the baby can sleep. Urgency is not unwarranted. The crisis is real. The work is necessary, but that doesn't mean it has to be unpleasant. The world might feel sharp and hard, but we can greet that with softness, with kindness, with authentic care and whispers to counter the screaming. The revolution is communal. It's deeply relational. Hyper-independence brings us to a place of buying guns to protect our homes and shooting our neighbors for wanting quiet. Instead, we lean into community, into flexibility. We yield to each other. Our softness is our resistance. Yesterday, I wasn't feeling well. It's actually been happening all week. It's related to migraines, which I really haven't gotten in years, but this week was a little different. And on Saturday morning, I was dragging. And I had to write this very sermon. I was typing these very words. I also had to get my son to a haircut, and my brother-in-law's in town. We had to go see my mother-in-law. So early in the morning, I'm in my office. I'm in front of my laptop. I'm pushing through, and my husband quietly handed me a banana that he had started to peel. Bananas have been my salvation all week for reasons I don't understand, but I feel better after eating one. My husband saw that we were out, and without saying a word, he went to the grocery store, he got some more, and then he handed it to me started to peel it. It was very cute with Excedrin and some cold water. It was kind and generous. And as I was writing about the harshness of the world, it was a reminder of gentleness. Our activism and our restfulness, our fight for justice and our joy, our chanting in the street and our singing in the shower are connected. And it's not about needing one to continue the other. It's that these things are the same. We are building a new world while engaging all of it. This is the revolution. There is no here and there or this and that. It's all one thing, one place, one life, ours, and we're living it as whole beings. The method is the message. So if I want to build a world of radical inclusion, I have to live into that vision now. If I want a world where communities are the central sources of goods and services, where we partner with each other, caring for our families and the details of our lives with a large circle of people, I have to build those communities now. And if I want love at the center of everything, I have to put it there now. The pleasure is the point. It's not a byproduct. It's not an aside. It's not a way to rest to go back to fight. The pleasure, the joy, the sweet love that makes our days possible, that's the point. That's what we're doing here. We're creating a world of that, a place everyone has that, a place everyone can safely play and dance and read romance novels. Rest and the centrality of love and a shared practice of joy and the commitment of communities of care are part of my vision for the future, which means they need to be part of my life right now without apology, without feeling badly that we're getting ready for our climate action by painting fabric and building huge paper mache, or even though we're furious about another black man being killed, we can bring singing to the streets to heal our heartbreak. And when we're back home, it's okay to take a hot bath and let a new soundtrack take you away, to eat a favorite meal or get a full body massage. It's more than okay. These things are part of the creation of the new world. These are the tools because these are what the plane is made from. The pleasure is the point. It is the vision of the new world. Communities working together, building something new, sourced by joy and a vision for something better. So I brought chocolate with me, and we're going to eat it together. I'm calling it communion. In my theology, communion is the action we take to connect. The word comes from Latin, literally meaning with together. It's an act of being with. It might mean being with God or gods, connecting with others, or the ground of being. In November, I learned there was a tradition of cornbread communion, and you all introduced me to that. And now I'm introducing you to chocolate communion. A few people have been very excited about it. My 13-year-old begged to come to church today. Chocolate is sensual. It's sweet and soft. The chocolate I brought will melt in your mouth, extending the pleasure. When eaten slowly, it can be joyful. And when eaten together, it can be communal. It feels like a window into the world I'm dreaming about, a place we rest together, enjoy life a little, experience something indulgent in community. Not only part of the future I hope to imagine into existence, it's part of the present I want to live now. I want us to offer each other things that are beautiful and delicious, without guilt or shame, without anyone telling us to do better or more or work harder. I want to share chocolate. Chocolate with together. Chocolate communion. And so, Reverend Jude, Janice, Marie, and I have little baskets. We're going to hand it out to you. I'm only going to ask you, don't drop the wrappers on the floor, please. While that's going around, we're going to sing. Let us indulge, listen to the music, taste the chocolate. The pleasure is the point.